Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one we are going to do quite an interesting beer actually. We're going to return to Evil Twin Brewing, who are sort of half Danish, half American these days, but we have another special beer from these guys. This is the Yin and Yang, and if you remember rightly, the Yin and Yang are also separate beers as well. So the Yin is an Imperial Stout and the Yang is a double IPA, and the idea behind these two beers was that you could either drink them separately or that you could mix them together, and I actually did that with my friends in Iceland. Both the Yin and Yang individually were really quite nice beers, but this one is quite interesting because of the ratio of the beers that they've put in it. This one is 67% IPA and 33% stout, so it should be a very interesting one, and as I say, both of the beers on their own were really good as well, so I'm quite interested to see how this one comes across, considering the brewery are the ones who've chosen the kind of blend ratio of this. Always cool for little things like that. But anyway, as is usual with my beer reviews then, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery. If you do want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual website links are in the video description below. That includes the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from Evil Twin before, and I will add more to that in the near future. There's the page, my Facebook page for the channel as well. Please like it, and also my Untappd profile as well, and feel free to add me as a friend on there. And as always, I ask my Danish viewers, please recommend some other Danish beers for me to have a look at. Always interesting to try beers from new places, and I do apologise if any of the Danish name pronunciations and things aren't quite right. But anyway, to tell you about Evil Twin Brewing, as I've told you many a time before, this is a Danish gypsy brewery that was founded by Jeppe Jarnet Bjergso, who's the twin brother of Mikkel Bjergso, the big boss at Mikkeller, but he founded this brewery back in 2010, and it was largely inspired by the lack of craft beer in Denmark at the time. So Jeppe began homebrewing in the same beer group that gave birth to Mikkeller along with his brother, but he went on to found his own beer shop called Ølbutikken in Copenhagen, and he also started an import business that was attached to the shop as well, and he used this to import American craft beers into Denmark, and he was one of the first people to do that actually, and the shop is still in Copenhagen. You can still go and buy beers from it, but later he decided that it would be fun to sell his own beers in the shop as well, and the shop actually also sold the very early Mikkeller beers as well, which was pretty cool. But Jeppe later agreed an import deal with 12% imports to send his beer over to America, and later he followed with his wife over there in 2012, and now the company is based in Brooklyn in New York. But the beer, as I said, these guys are a gypsy brewery, so they don't own their own facility, and their beer is rather brewed at a variety of host institutions, all in Denmark, America. I believe most of their beer is brewed in Stratford in Connecticut. They also brew in the Netherlands and in Scotland as well. In the Netherlands, I'm not sure where exactly they brew, but in Scotland they do some of their things with Brewdog as well. So quite a cool brewery, and the quality of beer that these guys produce is really quite good as well. So anyway, that's your kind of brief history of Evil Twin Brewing. We'll get on to the actual tasting of this beer now. So this one is a 10% blend of an Imperial Stout and an IPA blend, and as I told you before, it's the follow-on from the Yin beer, which was an Imperial Stout, and also the Yang, which was an IPA. And the whole idea behind this was that, you know, you have the old Chinese, the old sort of Chinese proverb, if you like. They talk about the, so how do you say it, sort of, forces, opposite forces can also be complementary as well. So it talks the yin and yang. You've got the badness inside the goodness and the goodness inside the badness, and then you've got the badness and the goodness kind of together in a circle. So it's quite an interesting thing, and I can see it's actually quite a clever thing to name their beers this. And as I told you, the two beers, the idea behind them was that you essentially could blend them together or drink them individually, and for this one they've chosen to make it 33% stout and 67% IPA. And when I was actually had these two beers with my friends in Iceland, I think we actually did it the opposite way around. We preferred it when it was about 60% stout and 33% or like 40% IPA or something like that. So this one will be quite interesting, but both beers were nice, and all of the different mixes that you could do were quite nice. So I'm interested to actually try it again and think about it a bit more. But this one says this is a complete RTD black and tan, not just any black and tan, but the one where we flawlessly mixed a flippant good Imperial IPA with a profoundly evil Imperial Stout and sustained sweet beer balance. Brewed by Evil Twin Brewing at Stratford, Connecticut, and distributed by 12% LLC, Brooklyn, New York. It says on the side as well, it's got a government warning, which of course we never listen to them, we just do what we want anyway. Especially if you're in Scandinavia, you don't really have to care that much because you're pretty much free to do as you like anyway, within reason. But yeah, no, it looks a pretty good beer. I'll just bring up the camera, let you have a little quick look at the artwork on this one before we crack it open. So I've seen that the other thing to mention with this beer is it comes in at 10%, and on Rate Beer this one has a rating of 99, both in the style and overall actually, so a very, very good beer. There you can see the standard Evil Twin bottle cap on this one, but yeah, it looks a very nice beer. Tells you on the bottom there 10% alcohol, 33% stout and 67% IPA, so it should be a really nice one. But yeah, let's crack it open and we'll get on with the tasting here. As you can see, a nice smoky opening on this one. But yeah, I've seen it on Rate Beer, it's described as being an Imperial Black IPA, which is probably a fair description. The real, you know, technically, if you want to go into it, it is a blend between an Imperial Stout and an Imperial IPA. So yeah, I can see why, in terms of a website like that, they would describe it as an Imperial Black IPA. And when I think about it, if this is an Imperial Black IPA, I think this is actually the very first one of its kind that I'm reviewing on the channel, so pretty cool actually. So yeah, as you can see, this beer is poured a really nice kind of dark rosewoody ebony colour. Pretty much, it's almost black actually. It's not even, if I hold it up to the light, it hardly even has a bit of a tinge to it. There's only just a tiny, tiny little bit of ruby, so probably it's fair to describe this beer as being ebony, but there's a solid finger of a frothy beige tan head there. If I put my fingers behind it, simply because of the colour of it, you're not going to get any transparency through that at all. There's a little bit of, there's a couple of big bubbles sticking towards the side of the glass, but quite a few little ones just going up towards the bottom of the head. But overall, as I'm sure you can agree, it looks like a very, very nice beer. So let's give it a smell and see how we get on here. Yeah, smells very, very nice, as I'm sure you would expect. You don't expect any less from Evil Twin, a very good brewery I have to say. But yeah, you can smell both elements of the IPA and of the Imperial Stout as well. So I think the malt is a bit more forward from the nose. So you've got quite a toasted element coming out of this one, some nice dark toasted caramel. Maybe a little bit of kind of treacle or molasses as they would call it in America. Maybe a little bit of licorice actually on this one as well. But there's a lot of kind of roasted character on this one. It's a big dark roasted caramel that's coming out of this. Maybe just a little hint of coffee actually, but I think it's more a kind of sweet chocolate that's coming out of this one. But a big sort of dark, kind of almost rye bread coming out as well. There's a lot in the nose of this beer, and particularly when it's a blend of two different beers that have big noses anyway, you know, really you will expect a lot out of this one. So yeah, give it a good smell before you actually get stuck into it. You can pick out some of the fruity characters as well. The fruit actually blends quite well with the chocolate. It's a bit of a weird thing to say when you're thinking about the aroma of a beer, but the fruity characters in this beer really blend quite well with the chocolate. You can pick a little bit of grapefruit out of this, and there's some citrusy orange coming out of this one as well. It's really nice actually. But there's a good bit of earthy hop character in there as well, and from a stout, you know, that's exactly what you would expect. Big earthy hop on this one. When you sugar it up a bit more, you can get a little bit of floral aromaticity, but it's mainly a kind of slightly herbal, earthy character that comes off of this one. But yeah, there's elements from both styles of beer in this, but I think the sort of stout ones for me, the stout elements to the beer are the ones that stick out a little bit more. But then again, the earthy characters and a bit more of the hoppiness are coming through in this. So really quite interesting, the aroma in this one. Take a good smell of it before you actually have a try of it. But yeah, so a really interesting beer. So without further ado, let's get stuck into this one. So this is the Yin and Yang, a blend of an Imperial IPA, 67%, and 33% Imperial Stout. Both beers individually are really nice, so I'm sure this one will follow in the same line. Skål. Now that is really quite nice actually. It comes across quite interesting. Yeah, like I was telling you, when I was in Iceland with my friend, we had both of the beers individually, and we played with them. We made them about, I think it was roughly about, the way that we liked it was 60% stout and about 40% IPA. So this one is kind of the other way around pretty much. But it works quite well as well. As I said, when you blended these beers together, it works regardless of kind of what ratio you did of it. But as I say, the 60 stout, 40 IPA was how we seemed to have a consensus that was how we liked it. But this is really nice as well, actually. And I mean, when these guys are the brewers, of course, they've got a lot more experience of playing with it than we did. We just did it kind of crudely. So it might well have been that we were closer to like 50-50 or something like that, but who knows. The main thing is, it's a good beer. That it's interesting as well to come across a beer that's actually a blend of two different beers like this. But yeah, in terms of the flavour of this one, it's really damn nice actually. I'm noticing in the aftertaste, there's a lot of sweet chocolate coming out on it in the aftertaste. It's got quite a wet mouthfeel just as you move into the aftertaste, and before it dries up you just get a nice chocolatey, sweet, milky, chocolatey flavour out of this one. But yeah, there's a hell of a lot going on in this beer. So in the middle of the palate, you just get a blanket from this kind of dark German rye bread flavour. It just goes right across the middle of the tongue there. Really reminds me a lot of a German rye bread. But on top of that, there's a lot of other things going on. There's a nice dark roasted coffee element. The coffee actually comes out a good bit more in this than it does in the aroma. I think the coffee is quite prominent in this. It's got a kind of dark roasted bitterness just as you move towards the back of the tongue and into the middle of it. There's a nice dark roasted coffee flavour coming out of there. But on top of that, as you move a little bit further forward, you start to get the fruitier elements of the flavour, and the sweet chocolate's actually mixing with that quite well. But on top of it, you get a nice dark toasted caramel flavour to this one. It is almost a bit like treacle or molasses, but I have to admit, really quite nicely done actually. This beer is really nicely done. It has a good blend between the hoppy characteristics and the sort of darker things. But what amazes me is that it's only 33% stout, but that stout, the dark roasted coffee bitterness in there, really punches its way through. But yeah, really nicely done actually. So around the edges of the palate where you're getting the hoppy characteristics of the beer, in the back corners you're getting a sort of slightly earthy hop character, which is exactly what you'd expect, and it's actually quite a dark earthy character. I'm saying it's quite a bitter. It's got quite a bit of bitterness to it, but the coffee flavours I think are blending in with that earthy hop and giving it and making it like that. It's a big beer, and you can feel, as I'm drinking this as well, you can feel a little bit of the alcohol warmth off it, and when it's 10%, you know, that's exactly what you would expect. You wouldn't expect any less of that. There's definitely a bit of a sort of woody or slightly nutty, more of a woody flavour I think that's coming out of this beer too. You can pick that up in the middle of the tongue, and it's almost just infused into these bready flavours, and the dark sort of roasted caramel is in there as well, and that woody and nutty flavours just blended in there as well. Around the back corners of the palate, as I say, that earthy hop character there is just lingering for me. But as you come a bit further forward, it gets a bit smoother, it becomes slightly more grassy and a little bit herbal, I have to say. The floral aromatic character, I think, doesn't appear too much in it. It is there in the aroma, you can detect a little bit of it, but I think in terms of the actual flavour, it's not quite as prominent. Yeah, well, there's a little bit of it there. Around the very front curve of the tongue, you can get a little bit of a sort of florally aromatic dryness, but you know, as I was saying, the coffee flavour in this, the sort of roasted coffee element to this beer is such that it almost makes the flavour just kind of almost unnoticeable. I feel like you have to pay specific attention to the front of your tongue to get that. So if you want to actually pick out all the flavours in this beer, you really have to pay attention to your palate, because there is a hell of a lot going on in there. But just behind the very front of your tongue, you'll get a little oily bubble, and that's where the fruity characters of this beer are coming out. And as I was telling you earlier, I think it mixes really well with a kind of slightly sweet, milky chocolate actually. But yeah, I'm getting quite I think it's quite an orangey citrus in there. There is a little bit of maybe a slightly grapefruity character, but it's maybe not quite that. It's maybe more of one of the more juicy tropical fruits. I'm not so sure on mango. It's maybe a bit more passion fruity or something like that. It does have a little bit of sharpness to it, but it's one of the more juicy tropical fruits that's in there. It doesn't have that typical slightly sour taste that you get from grapefruit, but I think the main fruity aspect of this beer is a kind of orangey citrus. You just pay attention to the little oily bubble behind the front of your tongue, you'll see what I mean. It's quite a juicy fruit character, but it does work quite well with the chocolate flavours in it actually, and that's maybe why it blends so well. I'm quite used to sort of orangey chocolate, and it does work quite well. Yeah, the juicy fruit character is really nice actually. Definitely a bit of orange, but I think there's a bit of a juicier tropical fruit in there. I'm not quite sure if it's grapefruit, but I think it's one of the more slightly juicy tropical fruits. Maybe mango or something like that, but there is a definite little tropical fruit edge to that, but mainly orangey citrus like I said. But as you can tell just by how long it's taken me to describe this beer to you, there's a hell of a lot going on in it, but it's really beautiful. And you know, if you see this, give it a try. It is a special beer, but I think they'll probably make it available rotation wise. But you know, it's really good. Give it a go, and it's something different. It's a blend of two different styles of beer, and it really is worth trying. But in terms of the mouthfeel of this one, I'm tempted to describe this one as being full-bodied. The actual liquid itself is more mid-bodied, but it's not such an easy beer to drink, and it's nothing to do with that. It's just the fact that it's 10%. You know, this is a taster beer. It's not a session beer, quite obviously, when it's that strength. But it is one. It's definitely a dessert beer. I can see why people describe it as a black IPA, but for me, there are some people I know who like to session dark beers. But for me, I'm more of a kind of IPA or a double IPA person. If I want to, or even a red beer actually, those are the sort of beers I like to session. I love dark beers, don't get me wrong on that, but for me this is a taster beer. This is one that I'll have if I say, oh, I actually want to do a beer video today, and I want a beer that will test me, you know, this is the sort of one that I have, and I love it. But it's not such a sessionable beer, and I'm sure you can understand why I say that, but don't get me wrong, it's absolutely beautiful, and you have to try it if you come across it. But yeah, full bodied, the carbonation is quite smooth on it. It has a little bit of an attack, but that helps bring out the kind of dark roasted elements to the flavour. Also some of the earthy hop, and perhaps a little bit of the aromatic character to the beer as well, but it smooths out as you go through it. The mouthfeel is really quite oily. There's a bit of malty sweetness to it as well. Like I was telling you, the chocolatey character is in there. There's a bit of the caramel too, but mainly the malt is actually a big roasted bitter character. And the interesting twist to the beer is that the earthy hop is also quite dry and roasted as well. But as you move around the rest of the tongue, the hops are quite smooth otherwise. And there is just a little bit of juicy character from that nice orangey citrus in there too, and it blends really well with the chocolatey flavour like I was telling. So pardon me, overall, really quite beautiful beer, very interesting, and I can see why it's described as an Imperial Black IPA. Probably one of the best ones you're going to come across, and it fully deserves that score of 98 or 99 that it has on Rate Beer. It's a beautiful beer and really well done. What I would say is that I would like them to see them do this beer the opposite way around, the Yang, and do like one maybe called Yang and Yang, where the stout is the more dominant partner in the beer. That would be interesting to see, and then you could actually compare the two. But then again, you could just buy Yin and Yang and play with it, which is what we did in Iceland. But yeah, I mean, overall, really beautiful beer. Another excellent one from Evil Twin that you really should check out. So go and try the Yin and Yang and the individual beers with this one as well. And anything you'll find from Evil Twin, pretty much pick a style you like and try one of their beers. You're not going to be disappointed with it. A very good brewery, I have to admit. But I hope you've enjoyed this beer review. It's been really cool to return to Evil Twin once again. Please let me know in the comment section below your own thoughts on this beer. If you do happen to have tried it before, let me know your thoughts on the ratios of the mixing as well. That would always be interesting to hear. But I thank you for watching my beer videos. There will be more from Evil Twin and more from Denmark as well. So until the next review, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Please like the Facebook page, add me as a friend on Untappd, and don't hesitate to get in touch. But Slange just now, and I will catch you soon.